Hello, hello, it is No Apologies on Beck, where we are unafraid to speak the truth. I am your host, Rick Becker, our co-host, Lori Hintz.
Glad to be here.
I'm darn tootin' glad to be here.
Interesting topics today. I'm looking forward to this show. I'm really looking forward to our guests, too.
My surgical assistant, Mindy, today said, hey, what's going to be on the show tonight? I said, well, Representative Jeremy Munson is going to be on, and we have a lot of interesting segments. And Lori's going to be talking about chimerism. And I'm going to be talking about the philosophy of common good that Catholics espouse and how it tends to be redistributist. And she was like, this
she
is what
rolled her eyes? She literally rolled her eyes?
She just like, so.
Well, let's do our best to jazz it up a little bit, shall we?
Here's the thing. I understand that the way I presented it to her was not necessarily the most interesting. So I'm going to try and make it, this very first segment, more interesting for our viewers. Because I find it fascinating. And not only that, you don't even need to be a nerd to recognize the importance of this topic. So pull up the graphic. We don't have too much for graphics on this, but I wanted to point out what brought me to this topic at this point, although it's something I've thought about for years, and it's critically important again, was a very recent Wall Street Journal opinion piece. And it says, Common Good Conservatism's Catholic Roots. The subtitle, though, is where we are headed. The anti-market right should remember that political liberty proceeds from economic freedom.
Say that again slowly.
So the anti-market right, so those on the right that believe, for instance, compassionate conservatism, right?
Compassionate conservatism,
right. And Marco Rubio is displayed prominently in this article because he believes very much in some redistributist type of things where we have to worry, it's part of his ethos, his religious ethos, to take care of, by way of the state even, to take care of the poor and the needy.
Sure.
And so it says the anti-market right should remember that political liberty proceeds, or is due to, or proceeds from economic freedom. So political freedom, in our political sphere, our society is free if we are economically free.
Right.
Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. So, and this is in no way bashing Catholicism, but Catholicism as the sort of initial universal Christianity and a very prominent religion throughout the United States and the world, and a pontiff, the Pope, which they bring about encyclicals, which are guidelines for a good part of the Christian world. The Catholic faith has what is in it, in their catechism, what's known as the common good. Now, the common good was described by Pope John the 23rd, who reigned from 1958 to 1963. The common good is defined as the sum total of social conditions which allow people, either as groups or as individuals, to reach their fulfillment more fully and more easily. Okay. So, I mean, that's fantastic, and that is, I think, very good policy to have, and I think it represents exactly what good part of Catholic social thought is all about. And in the New Testament, again, it is about charity and it is about looking after the needy and all of that. But we get into a divergence of thought on whether that is from the individual or whether it's from the state, and what does that mean? And is it for those that are believing in that catechism, that are in a position, do they use the state to those ends? There are three essential elements in the catechism for this Catholic social thought. And one is respect for the individual.
Right.
Another is the social well-being and development of the group, of society, community, what have you. And then peace, overall peace and stability. Now,
they all sound good to me.
They are fantastic, and see, we get into a really good discussion, I think, because you have organizations, even sisters, whether it's, I'm forgetting the group of sisters, but they will advocate, and some bishops will advocate for a social justice type of agenda, or a redistributist. And what I mean by that is it's kind of Marxian, but from those that can to those that need, or whatever. And they believe in that because that's how they interpret the common good policy, the catechism.
Okay.
the problem, and the reason I wanted to bring it up, and I think we should bring it up many times over the course of this show, and I encourage our viewers to think about this and see where it applies in their world. The common good and the concern for the social well-being and development of the group and respect for the individual. When we look at the free market, and that's what the subtitle is referring to, the market, the Adam Smith's invisible hand. What we see by allowing the free market to reign is that we allow for the greatest possibility for maximum dignity for the individual. There is the importance of work, and there is the importance of self-respect. These sorts of things come together to form the dignity of the individual. Back when I first read Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater, he laid out that the dignity, conservatives care about the dignity of the individual, not just the economic well-being. Because what we're talking about, if we're looking at Catholic social thought, and even more importantly, New Testament, what we are concerned about is the welfare, not just the economic welfare, but the entire welfare of the individual. And so we need to, I believe, take this idea of common good and recognize that a free market not only protects the individual, because they are concerned about the welfare of the individual and the welfare of the group. It protects the dignity of the individual, and it protects the welfare, even the economic welfare of the group, because when we have a free market, we have we are realizing the maximum potential of all the individuals in the aggregate. And we know that when we have overall increased wealth and prosperity, it is distributed because we've talked about income inequality.
Right.
So when you have a free market, you may have more income inequality, but what you have is, even though there's a greater disparity, you have those at the bottom being higher
Lifted.
than those where there's less economic inequality and they're lower. And so if we let the free market play out, it just works so beautifully to address all of the concerns in the Catholic Catechism, and still recognizes that everyone is better off, and it just really cannot be underscored enough, this importance of the dignity of the individual. Because when you are able to stand on your own 2 feet and say, yes, I'm not a millionaire, but I provided for my family, I worked my butt off, and yes, maybe someone needs to have 2 jobs, and so someone who's a redistributist would say, well, that's not fair. You are working 20 hours a week, he's working 80 hours a week, that's not fair, that's not good. No, the point is he is finding value in the world by being a provider, not only for himself, but for his loved ones.
Exactly.
And he provides the opportunity for his offspring to be better off than he was or she was. When we get in there and we distribute and we think we are doing something for the common good, we're helping the individual, we're actually hurting them in a way that's far more important than pure economics. And that's where we lose thought. And the reason I think this is important is because we start to lose our way on the right from conservatism when we lose our vast groups of people, Catholics and others, that start to recognize that the common good is important and buy into the idea that the coercion of the state to force people into redistributist policies to say take from the rich and give to the poor, that's
a subtle
somehow
leap too. It's a very simple
very
slide
subtle.
from one end to the other.
It's very subtle. We have to base everything on the charity of the individual to another individual. Coercion by the state is not the way to do it. That's not what's prescribed in the Bible. It's, Huffington Post had a famous article about Jesus is a socialist. I beg to differ.
I think not.
But we need to look for this. Marco Rubio is a great example, a good guy, but is buying into and therefore weakens the argument of the right from within. Because we cannot lose the argument that that conservatism is the moral way to go and protects the individual's dignity and is best for societal wealth.
That's such a great word too, dignity. It's just not even used anymore, but you're precisely right in bringing that up.
Dignity is the if I had to pick one word about what is good with conservatism, it is that one word. That is it, dignity. So there, Mindy, I hope you didn't fall asleep on that one.
I was enthralled, so.
All right, so we are going to be back with a guy I find fascinating. Representative Jeremy Munson will be back shortly. Stick with us, folks.
When you can't find answers to your recurring health challenges, it can feel like your health and your future are being held hostage. The Wellness Way is a network of health restoration clinics that think and act differently to solve the health challenges others can't. Here, we disrupt the standard approach to care through a combination of testing, individual plans, and one-on-one guidance, putting your health and your future where they belong, in your own hands.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Hey Bucks fans, if you're planning an outing, birthday, or employee appreciation night, then bring your group out to the Buck Stop for a night of fast-paced, high-scoring football. Your group will receive discounted tickets, options for reserved seating, scoreboard messages, VIP services, swag, and a space to gather during the game. You can also participate in pre-game ceremonies, halftime entertainment, in-game contests, and more. Call 701-595-0771 or visit bismarckbucks.com/tickets. All GA is first come, first serve. We'll see you on the turf. Go Bucks!
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York-style pizza. We also feature gyros, with the region's only gyro meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go, we deliver for you.
All right, we're back with No Apologies on Beck. And ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to have our next guest with us, Representative Jeremy Munson, a state representative in Minnesota, I believe from Mankato. I'm not sure how this guy has so much energy. It sounds to me, at least when I follow him, that he is doing so much. Jeremy, welcome. Welcome. I'm glad you're on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show. I love your show. It's great.
Oh, great.
Good.
Wow, that is a kind thing to say.
Fantastic. So Jeremy, you and I spoke very briefly about a couple of things that we could discuss, and there are so many. But I'm gonna jump right in. Well, first off, I'm gonna say that you and I met at an organizational convention or meeting, whatever, of Liberty legislators, and there are so few of us. It seems, at least, that it's great when we're able to connect. That's how you and I met, and I was fascinated by what you were accomplishing in the very blue state, seemingly, of Minnesota. And so that's kind of the foundation of where we're at. But I do want to jump right into the very first thing that you and I discussed could be topical, and that is secession. That we're looking at, you have a petition for secession of a number of counties from the state of Minnesota to the state of South Dakota. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually a lot of people in my area have been picking up and moving to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or moving to Iowa, a tax-friendlier state with less regulations, more freedom. And farmers can't do that because they can't take their land with them. So they've been asking me, what would it take for us to actually move the border of South Dakota or Iowa so that our county could move there? And I had House research how this would be done, and they came back to me with the actual legislation. So I introduced it as a bill in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and it caused quite a stir on social media just by introducing the bill.
Shocker.
I bet. I saw you were on Newsmax not too long ago, and they carried it as well. So clearly, it's making some waves. So, in a nutshell, what would be involved? I would assume that the Congress. My understanding is if this were to happen, Congress would have to be involved. U.S. Congress and South Dakota would have to be involved. What does it take?
Yeah, so it would take the counties to vote to go to a neighboring state. So that would, hopefully the county would be adjoining that state. Once that county joined, then the next state away could vote to join as well. And then once that's done, the legislature of Minnesota and that state would have to agree. And then Congress would have to agree to change the borders, which they do actually fairly frequently for rivers and such that move some land. But as you know, in Oregon, 7 counties now have voted to join rural Idaho. So 7 rural Oregon counties have voted to join Idaho. And if that would be approved by the legislatures and go to Congress, it would create a West Coast Idaho.
That cracks me up too. I know we've done that. We've actually talked about this on this program too. Maybe you saw it, but I've also been watching kind of the Northern California thing too, because there's rumblings there. There's been rumblings in Texas. A lot of different states are actually looking at this. They're like disgruntled. They're like, we're red. We don't belong with this blue leadership. We just want to bail.
Yeah, and it is I study with liberty. The best thing to give people is their own choice, and to make more people happy. Bring politics to be more at the local level, and let people associate with other states that they, without having to move, right? Keep everybody in your community and just choose better governance.
My question is how is the feeling in South Dakota? They're like, come on over. What's the feeling that you're getting from the South Dakota folks?
Yeah, well, actually, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem retweeted the proposal and welcomed us to South Dakota if we choose. Earlier this week, I met with Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds and talked about this proposal. She thought it was a great idea because, again, they're a red state and they have the same values that we have here in rural Minnesota.
Sure. Now, rural Minnesota, if you are not aware, is outstate Minnesota is not the same as the blue metro areas of Minnesota. You've got your really concentrated blue areas in Minneapolis and some in Duluth, but then the rest of the outstate of the other districts are very, very red.
Yes. And it's taxes, regulations, everything. The defund the police movement that became so popular in Minneapolis is just non-existent here in rural Minnesota. We love our police. So there's so many things that are this great divide. And Governor Walz, our governor of Minnesota, he ran on a campaign of one Minnesota, but he's really divided us, especially over the past year with the COVID lockdown orders, the mask mandates, and everything else. And so it's caused greater division in our state. And I would just love to see rural Minnesota choose better governance and be governed by South Dakota or Iowa.
Yeah, and Kristi Noem in her tweet said, in South Dakota, we roll out the red carpet for people who love personal responsibility and freedom. So, yeah, that's fantastic. I'll say, Jeremy, I was a little bit saddened to see this map where a good portion of Minnesota moves to South Dakota and none of it's moving to North Dakota. But I will say I understand, because South Dakota, as far as liberty goes, is doing so much more with so much less than what North Dakota has as far as resources and so forth. So I get it. Sadly, I get it. Do you think, what's the likelihood of their going to the next step?
Well, I think it's starting the conversation. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask how they can get involved, if they can put up billboards, in support of this and such. And it doesn't prevent counties from moving to North Dakota. I've talked to a lot of people in East Grand Forks that would love to join North Dakota. My family from Breckenridge moved to Wahpeton to escape Minnesota. So I think there's a lot of people on the border counties that would love to go to North Dakota. So it's not specific to a certain state, but I hope it can move forward. I'd like to get a senator to introduce it in the Minnesota Senate. As you know, Minnesota is the only divided legislature in the entire country where we have a Republican-controlled Senate and a Democrat-controlled House. And so if we could have a senator introduce it in the Minnesota Senate and hold hearings on it, we could have farmers from border communities, business owners that have moved to neighboring states, and mayors and such that have lost so many community members and businesses to neighboring states to come and talk about this disparity, because we are competing against neighboring states all the time. And we need to keep people here in Minnesota for our economy. So I think it would be good to have hearings. And, it's a possibility that Democrats just might get sick of us and just let us go.
Sorry,
I like that. I like that
okay,
strategy.
Okay, good riddance. Bye. That's so funny and probably not false. No, this is a kind of a long process too. I mean, it takes a long time to get to, all of the hoops that you have to do that, like several years, I would assume.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people about, hey, why can't Western or Eastern North Dakota or Eastern Dakota? And we don't want, that would be 2 additional senators coming in, right? We don't want to have new senators. We can just join another state. There's no reason why the Democrats in DC shouldn't let us go. They should just allow the border change.
I would think if you had a vote, certainly in the city of Minneapolis, they'd be happy to let you go. But I do agree with you that it would probably help gain a lot of traction if formal hearings could be held in the state Senate. So that's a great idea. I want to, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say, overall, I think it's so important to talk about the disparity. Talk about the tax differences, talk about what it means for schools and everything else. And so that's win, lose or draw. I think there would be a win out of bringing this forward.
Exactly.
Agreed. I'd like to pivot a little bit. We don't have much time in the segment, but we'll continue on in the next segment. I'd like to pivot to COVID. And, I've taken a look at a lot of your social media, and I think that we and you are on the same page with regard to that. Before we break, the one thing I wanted to point out, we recently had a segment about these drawings, the $1 million lotto for vaccinations. And I liked you had Stranger Danger with Governor Walz in the back of a van offering free goodies, free park passes, fishing licenses, and more. So one of the things I do like is your creativity. Do you have any comments with regard to that incentivizing that they're doing?
Well, I think I've been able to attack social media pretty well with, trying to draw people in and engaging people in social media, which is, I think, one thing that you and I both do well is bringing the legislature to the people and transparency in government. And that means engaging with people on social media. And I think we have to really show people in a single image as they're scrolling through the newsfeed what the governor's doing. And this is what I see him doing. He's out there trying to entice our children to get vaccinated. By giving them a day pass to the Nickelodeon universe at the Mall of America. I mean, what kid wouldn't want that? And so we need to really rein it in. I think Stranger Danger was a good image.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I think the whole concept is just plain gross. So, Jeremy, let's have you back on next segment. We'll be back, folks, in just a couple of minutes. We're going to talk more about COVID and some of our concerns. Be right back.
When you can't find answers to your recurring health challenges, it can feel like your health and your future are being held hostage. The Wellness Way is a network of health restoration clinics that think and act differently to solve the health challenges others can't. Here, we disrupt the standard approach to care through a combination of testing, individual plans, and one-on-one guidance, putting your health and your future where they belong, in your own hands.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with 1 truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Prairie Patriot Firearms and Training is the region's most complete gun and training center. 5-lane indoor range, a gun shop, and a certified training facility. Firearms training courses are offered daily for new, intermediate, and advanced shooters. If you're not comfortable in a classroom setting, Prairie Patriot offers one-on-one private lessons, from basic self-defense training to concealed weapons testing, along with a full line of guns, ammunition, holsters, and concealment clothing. Prairie Patriot, 3930 Memorial Highway, prairiepatriot.com.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York-style pizza. We also feature gyros, with the region's only gyro meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go, we deliver for you.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
All right, we are back. It's No Apologies on Beck, your after-hours oasis of sanity. I'm your host, Rick Becker, co-host Lori Hintz, and more importantly, our esteemed guest, Representative Jeremy Munson from Minnesota. Jeremy, welcome back once again. So, Jeremy, we closed out the last segment just kind of jumping in a little bit to COVID. And I know that you are, as an advocate of freedom, very much concerned with what has been happening regarding the COVID response. We always have to try and emphasize COVID response, not COVID. COVID itself had very little impact, not to diminish the importance for those that lost loved ones. I guess that always needs to be said.
But the reaction to it.
For society as a whole, it had very little impact. The response to it, the government response to it, is what has been devastating for society. Let's talk just a little bit more about some of those concerns and your viewpoint, especially I've been hammering on our governor in North Dakota because I think, frankly, he did a crappy job. However, relative to your governor, he's a gem. So tell us a little bit about what it is like in Minnesota under the draconian dictatorship of Governor Walz.
Yeah, well, to bring us back to last March, I was actually with the governor at his residence just a few days before he declared his emergency. And we were talking about it, and he was imagining, the National Guard rolling down the streets, enforcing stay-at-home orders. It was really going to be draconian. And he locked everything down, locked down the restaurants, locked down churches, issued stay-at-home orders. You couldn't even go outside and go fishing, or it was terrible. But the devastation it did to our economy was horrendous. Even when it wasn't prevalent in rural Minnesota, he wanted to make sure that it was statewide. So there was a few cities like Minneapolis, St. Paul, Mankato, Rochester that issued mask ordinances. And then those mayors were petitioning the governor to issue a statewide mask mandate because everybody in the town was going to neighboring communities to do their business. They were choosing not to come to that town. And so they wanted a statewide mandate. But when he issued the statewide mandate, you have to keep in mind, over half of our restaurants in Minnesota are within a half hour of another state. And so when they shut down Minnesota, residents were just going to Wisconsin or going to Iowa or South Dakota in free states to do their business. So it really hurt our economy. I filed a lawsuit against the governor just weeks after he issued his unconstitutional edicts and challenging the constitutionality of it because he was writing pure law, and they were going and enforcing it and threatening to jail people and fining people because of his own law that he wrote. He doesn't have that authority. There's a separation of powers for a reason. We also brought forward a motion in the legislature to end his emergency, but we have a chapter of law that gave him this authority, and it was really for fires and floods. It was never for a public health crisis. And so, like many other states, we tried to overrule him. And then the bottom line is, when he issues the emergency, the legislature in our law can, if both the House and Senate vote to end the emergency, then his powers end. But because we have a Democrat-controlled House, they refuse to end his emergency. And so we have this kind of reverse lawmaking path, or legislative veto, which the U.S. Supreme Court in the 80s found to be unconstitutional. We've also challenged that in court, and it's still waiting in both federal and state court.
Interesting. Any timeline for when that might occur? And along with that question, are you concerned that the court will render it moot now that the emergency power has been lifted?
Well,
or has it been, actually? I don't know.
Yeah, we of course we lost in county court because we challenged it in Ramsey County, which is the St. Paul. It went through appellate court and we lost there. So we're waiting for the Minnesota Supreme Court to take it up. The federal side, we challenged during elections because Minnesota has a law in the books that says it's illegal to wear a mask in public. You can't hide your face in public unless unless you're receiving medical treatment, and this was a prophylactic, so you're doing it not for treatment but preventative. And so he had written a law requiring a mask, and we challenged it to say the court has to decide. We have two laws in conflict with each other. They have to decide it because if you want to go vote, you would be breaking the law either way.
Sure.
And we brought that in front of a federal court, and they basically said, it's unprecedented time, and they didn't want to decide on it. So we've tried a lot of different legal challenges, but we do have a liberal Supreme Court. We have fairly conservative federal justices. So we have some cases that went through federal court. We won one where Governor Walz had restrictions on our churches. And so we did win that one. But it's ongoing, and I hope to solve this. The bottom line I see is there's a major taking that nobody's talking about, and that's the eviction moratorium. As a property owner, I've had people that haven't paid for rent for many months. That's a pure taking. The governor has came in and said, you don't have to pay rent, and property owner, you still have to pay your mortgage. And it's a pure taking. And so we need to resolve that. And there's a lot of people that have lost their homes, a second home they had that they rented out. So we need to solve that and end the eviction moratorium. And what better time when the government was sending thousands and thousands of dollars in stimulus checks to people. We should have ripped the Band-Aid off at that time.
Yeah, no doubt about that. One of my sons is an attorney in Colorado Springs and does a lot of work with regard to labor, or I'm sorry, not labor, but the landlord type of law. And you're absolutely right. Taking is a perfect word for that. I don't know how.
Well, picking winners and losers is never a good thing. When somebody is at somebody else's expenses getting really shafted.
Right, and I'm not quite sure how they see the benefit. It's more of a platitude or a pandering type of legislation or executive order. It's ridiculous. Governor Paulus in Colorado has been having an extension after extension after extension of the eviction moratorium. So, yeah, hopefully you'll make some headway there because that's pretty significant. I saw you post on social media. I just want to hit this. Your daughter plays in a band, right?
Yes.
And I forget what instrument. Maybe a woodwind instrument, maybe a saxophone. I forget. But there's a hole in her mask, and it seems to me that a picture like that almost has to be a parody, but it was the real thing,
right? It was
right?
here in Bismarck too. We've had band members.
I mean,
that was real. She plays saxophone, and all the holes on the saxophone aren't covered up, so the air is still escaping that way. And I'm a hobby sports photographer, so I take pictures of my kids playing basketball wearing masks. And my friend in North Dakota thought it was parody too, because she can't believe people were wearing masks while running in playing sports.
Well, Jeremy, let me tell you, see, the problem that you have, sir, is you don't understand science, okay? Because science. So with that, let's take a break. We're going to come back for a third segment with you, Jeremy, and I appreciate you coming back on. And we're going to discuss the ramifications of being a legislator in a blue state versus a red state. Stick with us, folks.
We're the ladies of Another View, bringing you a fresh view on local issues.
And different perspectives you won't get on the mainstream media. Watch us weekday afternoons at 4:30 Central Time on Beck News and at beck.news.
When you're buying windows, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. Hi, I'm Jesse with the Window Source. We only sell you the best windows and doors for the best price. Call the Window Source. Just because you pay less doesn't mean you get less.
If you don't know what's going on in education in this country, then you don't know what's going to happen in the future of this country. And it's important. I'm Dr. Duke.
And I'm Katie.
Watch the Dr. Duke Show weekdays at 4 p.m. Central Time on Beck TV.
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York style pizza. We also feature Heroes with the region's only Hero meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go. We deliver for you.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm gonna pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
All right, we are back for our final segment with Representative Jeremy Munson. Thank you for joining us again. Jeremy, welcome back in. And so we're going to talk about I think probably our final topic here, and that is going to be juxtaposing what it's like for you versus what it's like for someone like me, being a legislator in a blue state versus a red state. And I mean, wow, I have so many thoughts on this. But you have the Senate. Republicans have the Senate, but you're in the House in the minority. Do you feel like you're able to accomplish much?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. My vote in the House doesn't matter. They can pass whatever they want without using any minority votes. But there are certain things that you can get through if you believe in liberty and you want to protect individual rights if it's a blue state. And you could work on getting rid of corporate cronyism. Right. That's one thing that I will agree with Democrats on is that so much of the legislation is picking winners and losers. And when Republicans are in charge, they choose to do big handouts to big pharma and all these, big corporations. And so I call that out a lot. We have a program in Minnesota called reinsurance, which is a big bailout because Obamacare destroyed our markets, that we actually, subsidize private health insurance companies to lower their rates. And so I fight against reinsurance, which Republicans in Minnesota typically like. And then all of these, picking winners and losers during the pandemic, when all this money rained down from the federal government, all the lobbyists just started feeding at the trough of government and calling that out and pushing back. And of course, Democrats typically hate big pharma, except for vaccines. For vaccines, they actually kind of like it, right? They hate Pfizer.
Well, there's all that virtue signaling stuff that they can go on with that, So.
Yeah, Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer were the enemy of the state with the opioid crisis. They caused this, and then all of a sudden, Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson can't touch them. They have,
Yeah, right. I'm curious if you could tell us the makeup of the House. What is the ratio in the House in Minnesota?
So we were really close. We had a big gain in the last election, and we're now just 6 seats short.
Oh, wow.
And in the Senate, we had a 1-seat majority, and then 2 Democrats from the Iron Range left the Democrat Party and became independents. So we have 3 caucuses in the Senate, and of course we have 3 caucuses in the Minnesota House. I started a new caucus with 3 other members called the New House Republican Caucus, much like your caucus in North Dakota. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I
that's
like your
fantastic.
name. It's a lot safer, and it's not as vilified. Probably it's harder for people to remember.
Yeah, yeah. Smart move, Jeremy.
move
New
on
Republicans, yeah. So, tell me just a little bit more about that, because I'm intrigued. Obviously, having started a similar caucus in North Dakota, how is that going? How many members do you have? How are the 2 caucuses, the regular Republicans and the New Republicans, working together?
Yeah. Well, we started our caucus primarily because of a difference in opinion on leadership. We didn't like the then Speaker of the House, Kurt Dowd, and how he was running things and how he would bend over for lobbyists and special interest groups. Since we've left, he's now the minority leader, but he actually took a job working for a DC lobbying firm, Stateside and Associates. So he's actually gone deeper into the swamp since we left. And a lot of the members of the old House caucus kind of say, well, you guys used to stand up and make these great arguments for liberty and why we should be voting against this stuff. And Kurt, the leader of that caucus, won't really allow us to caucus with, in the room with them. So there's quite a division, but we are so transparent in what we do. A lot of the other members see our arguments right on social media. We live stream the floor sessions to Facebook. We do live caucuses where we actually go through omnibus bills and lay out all the arguments why conservatives should vote against these. And I think that's been really resonating with people in that caucus.
They love transparency.
See, that's the thing.
That's the whole thing.
And that's the way it is, I think, Jeremy, with all truly principled conservatives, regardless of whether they're Republican or not, is that they focus on transparency because they have nothing to hide. They believe in principle. The principle's out there. And boring or not, you can almost always know what a true conservative's vote is going to be because they're consistent. And so in that, there's nothing to hide. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the lobbyists have told me is that I don't even come and talk to you anymore because I know how you're going to vote. Right?
There you go. Well, that's a great thing. I mean, that's why you elect people, because you know how they're going to vote. Isn't that the whole premise?
Right, exactly. So do you foresee a change in the majority in this next election cycle for the House in Minnesota?
I certainly do. I mean, I thought there was going to be a big sweep in the last election because of just going to all these events in rural Minnesota. And, Keith Ellison, what is our attorney general? He was a former congressman. And we had, I served with Ilhan Omar in the Minnesota House, also a big radical. So I thought that people had enough of Minneapolis. The problem is that Minnesota has very lax voter integrity, voter regulation laws. And so we need to restore some of that. We don't have provisional ballots. We don't require an ID. You can just have somebody come in and vouch for you to vote. And I've had so many people that I work with from India that voted in the 2016 election because all they needed was a cable bill or somebody to vouch for them. So that's the problem. We need to restore our elections. And if we can do that, we can take back the Minnesota House and the governor's race. And of course, we have a doctor running, Dr. Scott Jensen, who's been great. And he was right on COVID the whole time. So he has a great chance. People love doctors and trust doctors.
Yeah, we've seen him. I've seen some videos of Scott Jensen. He's excellent. He is just a really good communicator.
Are you formally endorsing Dr. Jensen, or are you holding the cards yet?
No, I'm all in on Scott Jensen. I have been since I served with him when he was in the Minnesota Senate, and we carried some healthcare regulation stuff together, or actually free markets and healthcare price transparency stuff together. I support him, and I hope he wins.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's I do too. That would be phenomenal. There's got to be a strong get out the vote movement for all of rural Minnesota, and frankly, even urban Minnesota, for those that are fed up with the whole Black Lives Matter situation, what's happening to their community. I would think that if that's strong enough, it could work to Scott Jensen's advantage. Well, Jeremy, I really appreciate you having you on and your willingness to talk about these various topics. And I know you're involved in so much, so I would love to have you on again in the not too distant future to talk about some more things.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I love North Dakota.
All right. Thanks a lot. Folks, stick with us. We are going to come back, and Lori's going to talk about chimerism.
Yeah, chimera.
Chimerism.
Oh, it's so macabre. All right, just stay with us. We'll see.
When you can't find answers to your recurring health challenges, it can feel like your health and your future are being held hostage. The Wellness Way is a network of health restoration clinics that think and act differently to solve the health challenges others can't. Here, we disrupt the standard approach to care through a combination of testing, individual plans, and one-on-one guidance, putting your health and your future where they belong, in your own hands.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Spas, etc. Yeah. You've come to know and trust us for over 18 years with the largest selection and showroom in Western North Dakota for our beautiful Sundance spas. Plus, you can pick out your next home experience with our selection of pool tables, shuffleboards, and fun accessories.
Spas, etc. Your relaxation destination on Main and Bismarck.
40 years ago, Aero Service Team started with one truck and lots of hard work.
Times may have changed, but the hard work that we put in to get your lives back in order after fire, water, and disaster hasn't.
Over the years, we've seen so many families lose their belongings due to water and fire damage. Restoring homes back to the original state has made every hour of hard work well worth it.
Thank you for trusting our family with yours.
When disaster strikes, you only have to make one call. Aero Service Team does it all.
Every great pizza has a secret. At New York To Go, that secret lies in our perfectly recreated New York water, the key ingredient to making our signature New York style pizza. We also feature gyros with the region's only gyro meat spit, plus Nathan's hot dogs, calzones, and our delicious jumbo buffalo wings. Try a 14-inch or our special giant 20-inch pizza tonight. You gotta know how to fold them if you want to hold them. New York To Go, we deliver for you.
It's every American's right to bear arms. At Mandan Sporting Goods, we're here to help you support your Second Amendment rights, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Whether you're looking for a pistol for personal defense or collector gun, we have the staff to help you. We also have the area's largest inventory of ammo and reloading supplies.
Mandan Sporting Goods, the area's local gun and ammo specialists.
All right, we are back. No apologies on Beck. It is our fifth and final segment, and you're back, and we knew that you would be back because this is a damn good show, folks.
Wow, subtle.
Yeah. Confidence.
This is an interesting topic that I came across, and it is chimera, spelled C-H-I-M-E-R-A. It looks like chimera, but it is chimera is how you pronounce it. And chimera is a word that I decided I was going to look up because I hadn't seen it anywhere, and all of a sudden it started popping up in these articles that I was reading about because of the research it was talking about. The definition of chimera, it's like a brain food, you're getting a brain food here, is a fire-breathing she-monster in Greek mythology.
Is your picture in there?
I didn't bring a picture, but it is having a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. That's a chimera. It's an imaginary monster compounded of incongruous parts. So things pieced together, think Frankenstein, little different pieces together. It's also an illusion or fabrication of the mind, is a chimera. And for the purposes of this topic tonight, it is an individual organ or part consisting of tissues of diverse genetic material or genetic constitution. A hybrid created through fusion of a sperm and an egg from different species is a chimera. So in Greek mythology, chimera was a fearsome fire-breathing monster, but yeah, we're talking about piecing things together. The deal is that I have seen a couple of articles that are talking about the ethical problem with Chimera. The first one, let's show a graphic here. This first one is from the Federalist, and this is a story that I came across, and it says the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, the so-called Endless Frontier Act, has been lauded as a force against China's technological dominance, but it's turning into a giant pile of special interest pork that increases taxpayer outlays for grotesque medical research that splices the bodies of animals with those of aborted human babies. And they had me at this story. Let's go to the next one, too. This is another thing. Just as a background for this story, after weeks of Senate floor debate and more than 600 proposed amendments, the Senate will vote on the bill first introduced by Senator Chuck Schumer of New York and Senator Todd Young. And so this Tuesday, so technically yesterday was the day that this was going to be voted on, and have yet to see any information about how it went. The problem with this is when you start splicing things together, you have a real issue. So they are talking about some very macabre splicing of things together. I have read about they scalp these aborted fetuses and take part of the scalp and then splice it onto the backs of rats. How do you not see that there is something ethically wrong with that? That is a real problem for me. I just have an issue with that. Now let's go to the next one, because this is another little piece of this. This is from a Politico article, and they are talking again about the bill. The bill, dubbed the U.S. Innovation and Competition Act, would set aside more than $250 billion in new funding for research grants and semiconductor production. Now, that sounds all well and good, but they're sneaking all of this other pork in there and all of this really weird macabre stuff. The bill would also set aside nearly $40 billion over 5 years to boost the National Science Foundation and establish new technology directorate tasked with confronting China. So that was how the bill kind of started, but several cabinet-level agencies are also funded. $17 billion for research at the Department of Energy and its national labs, $17 billion for the Defense Department's research agency, and $10 billion for the Commerce Department to establish regional technology hubs. So what they're doing is they are convoluting all of this massive amounts of spending in the name of science, but in the background they're doing some really, really horrible stuff. And I am having an issue with the ethics of it. Now there are two more little pull quotes that I want to share with you on this. And one of them has to do with chimera. So enabling chimera research to go unchecked raises several ethical concerns. And this is Penny Young-Nance who's talking about this. She said, the dignity of human life at every stage of development must be respected and protected. There is nothing in this bill to ensure that the U.S. and partners abide by ethical standards that the American people expect, with the billions in taxpayer funds going to such activities. This is a problem because you have all of these experiments being done and no oversight. So they're getting very, very free rein with this, with millions and millions of dollars. So now one more, and this one is talking about what's the stage of what was going on in the Senate. Senator Mike Lee of Utah previously introduced an amendment to prohibit funds for research involving aborted fetal tissue, and Senator Mike Brown of Indiana proposed an amendment that would prohibit certain types of human-animal chimeras. Both amendments were struck down. So people are not even viewing this as a problem, unfortunately. And there's a new town hall article out a couple of nights ago that is tying Anthony Fauci now to these articles, or to these experiments as well. A massive dump of emails that you maybe have heard about recently with Anthony Fauci as they pertain to the coronavirus being potentially engineered, and his fixation with gain of function research is suspect enough. As it turns out, though, the head of NIAID is also connected to human-animal hybrid experiments using aborted fetal parts, which have taken place at the University of Pittsburgh. Students for Life of America and the Center for Medical Progress are sounding the alarm.
Interesting.
It is. It's ishy.
I mean, it's definitely, yeah, there's no question it's ishy. I'm just intrigued by what they're accomplishing by putting baby parts on lab rats.
Right. Well, they said they tried to grow hair on the scalps of these scalped aborted fetal. I'm thinking,
wow.
I mean, where does it end? The problem is when you start splicing different species like that, there are myriad problems with what you can do. And I come from a place where I believe that you leave creation as it is. You do not try to, combine species like that. Humans and animals have no business being spliced together in my mind.
Very interesting.
I just think that there are a lot of real problems with that. And the more things that we find out about this Anthony Fauci part of it too, it's making me very, very curious to find out how far they want to take it. If there's no oversight on this from the bills and they have unlimited funds because of science, then there's no stopping what they are doing here. And it sounds like in the Senate they're having a hard time putting limits on things because they're getting voted down too, which is really interesting to me because I would think that would be an issue for people.
Yeah, you would absolutely think so. And I start to think also about just the ramifications of how, so I mean, we have the one area where we're like, what the hell are they doing with baby parts on rats? But the other thing is that research so important that, I mean, the act of processing and harvesting the baby parts, they have to be kept in a healthy state.
Right, exactly.
So it's got to be it's not like you just go out to the trash.
Right.
So there's obviously a network and a process and everything in place to make this happen, and yet I've not even ever heard about such a thing.
Exactly.
It's blowing
Well,
me
I'm
away.
going to do more research and try to find out what's going on in the Senate with this bill, and we'll let you know and give you an update in the future about this macabre Frankenstein stuff because it's hideous, horrible. So next time on the show, we are going to be doing a little different Bourbon Bureau thing. So I'll be at the desk and Rick will be zooming in, and we'll talk a little bit about people still wearing masks and why. And
I'll be in Fargo. We'll see if people are still wearing masks.
Yeah, you can give me an on-the-spot report, and we'll take a peek at our mailbag tomorrow too. So join us next time.